My dog isn't a dog, it's something else, and I'm terrified. The silence in the farmhouse was deafening. It had been a welcome change at first, a stark contrast to the constant hum of the city. Now, 3 weeks in, the silence felt like it was pressing in on me, suffocating me with its emptiness. That's why I went to the Havenwood animal shelter. I wasn't really looking for a dog, not initially. Just some company, a warm body to share the space with. But then I saw him. Barnaby. He was a mutt, the kind you can't quite place. Part shepherd, maybe some lab, definitely something else mixed in there too. He was cowering in the back of his kennel, his ribs showing through his matted fur. His eyes, though, they were what got to me. Too knowing. Too human. The shelter worker, a young woman named Bethany, told me he'd been found wandering on the outskirts of town. No collar, no microchip, no one claiming him. He was scheduled to be put down at the end of the week. I filled out the paperwork, paid the adoption fee, and took him home. The first few days were normal, more or less. He was timid, skittish around loud noises. He ate ravenously, polishing off every scrap of kibble I put in his bowl. He followed me around the house, his tail tucked between his legs. I started to feel less alone. Then the strange things started happening. It started small. He seemed to understand words he shouldn't have. I'd be talking to myself, planning my day, and he'd react to specific words like walk or treat. More than just a dog knowing common commands. He'd anticipate what I was going to say. Then came the eating habits. He refused to eat dry food after the first week. Only raw meat. I chalked it up to him maybe having a sensitive stomach, and figured I would ask Dr. Thorne the vet when I went for the checkup. I bought some ground beef at the Havenwood General Store, and he devoured it in seconds, not even bothering to chew. Emily Carter, who ran the store, gave me a funny look when I bought so much. Dog got a taste for the good stuff, eh? She chuckled. The vet checkup came and went. Dr. Thorne was an old man, probably in his late 70s, with a weathered face and eyes that seemed to see right through you. He gave Barnaby a once-over, listened to his heart, checked his teeth. He didn't say much, but I could tell he was uneasy. "He's a healthy dog," Thorne finally said, his voice raspy. "Keep an eye on him. Make sure he gets plenty of exercise. He's been refusing kibble, only wants raw meat," I said. "Is that normal?" Thorne paused, his gaze fixed on Barnaby. "Some dogs are just picky," he said vaguely. "Wouldn't worry too much about it. Just make sure he's getting a balanced diet." I left the vet's office feeling more confused than reassured. That night, I woke up to a scratching sound. It was coming from downstairs. I grabbed a flashlight from my nightstand and crept out of bed. Barnaby wasn't in his usual spot at the foot of the bed. The scratching was louder now, more insistent. I followed the sound to the living room. Barnaby was standing by the front door, his paws digging into the wood. He wasn't barking, just scratching, his body tense. I opened the door, expecting to see a raccoon or some other small animal. There was nothing there. Just the empty darkness of the Pennsylvania woods. "Barnaby, what is it?" I whispered. He didn't respond. He just stared out into the darkness, his body rigid, a low growl rumbling in his chest. I pulled him back inside and closed the door, a shiver running down my spine. The next morning, I found a dead rabbit on the porch. It hadn't been killed cleanly. It looked like it had been torn apart. I started locking the doors at night. Then came the jumping. I have a 6-foot fence surrounding the backyard, and I thought he was safe. I let him out one morning, and when I went to check on him, he was gone. I searched everywhere, panicked, calling his name. I found him sitting on the roof of the shed. It was at least 10 feet tall. He looked down at me, tilting his head, those unsettling eyes fixed on mine. He didn't jump down. He stepped off and landed on all 4 feet. I couldn't deny it anymore. Something was wrong with Barnaby. Terribly wrong. I started doing research. Obsessively. I spent hours online, scouring websites and forums, looking for anything that could explain his behavior. I looked at dog breeds, genetic anomalies even, darker things. I found a few obscure articles about animal experimentation, about scientists trying to enhance canine intelligence and physical abilities. They were mostly conspiracy theories, dismissed as fringe science. But as I read them, a cold dread began to creep into my heart. One night, I was digging through old boxes in the attic when I found a stack of documents relating to the farmhouse. They were from the previous owners, a family named Hemlock. I started flipping through them, mostly old tax records and property deeds. But then, I found something else. A series of handwritten notes, filled with strange symbols and diagrams. They talked about rituals, about summoning something from the other side, about binding it to the land. I slammed the box shut, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't want to know anymore, but the rabbit hole was too deep. I was already falling. That night, I had a nightmare. I was standing in the woods behind the farmhouse, surrounded by trees that seemed to twist and writhe like living things. Barnaby was there, but he wasn't a dog anymore. He was something else. Something with sharp teeth and glowing eyes and a voice that echoed in my skull. He was calling my name. I woke up screaming, covered in sweat. Barnaby was sitting beside the bed, his eyes wide, his tail wagging tentatively. I couldn't look at him. I called Dr. Thorne again. I told him about the documents I'd found, about the rituals, about Barnaby's increasingly bizarre behavior. He was silent for a long time. Then he sighed, a long, weary sigh. "Sarah," he said, his voice low. "This land, it has a history. A dark history. There are things here that are best left undisturbed." "What things?" I asked, my voice trembling. "What do you know about Barnaby?" "I can't tell you," he said. "It's too dangerous. Just be careful, Sarah. Be very careful. And if you see anything at all, out of the ordinary, you need to leave. Leave this place and never come back." He hung up. I sat there, staring at the phone, my mind racing. What was he so afraid of? What was so dangerous about this place? I looked at Barnaby, who was still watching me, his head tilted, his eyes filled with an unsettling intelligence. I started to notice other changes in Barnaby, subtle at first, then more pronounced. His limbs seemed elongated, almost unnaturally so. His teeth were sharper than they should have been, like tiny needles. His eyes, they seemed to reflect the light differently, glowing with an unnatural intensity in the dark. His coat started falling out in clumps to reveal something that resembled smooth skin. One afternoon, I was outside gardening when I saw him catch something. I thought it was a bird, but when he brought it to me, I almost fainted. It was a bat. But it wasn't dead. Not exactly. It was like he kept it barely alive. He looked up at me expectantly. I started carrying a knife. I knew I had to leave. I couldn't stay in that house any longer. But where could I go? Who would believe me? I called Sheriff Brody, a gruff but well-meaning man who'd lived in Havenwood his entire life. I told him about Barnaby, about the documents, about Dr. Thorne's warning. He listened patiently, but I could tell he thought I was crazy. "Sarah," he said, his voice gentle, "I know you've been through a lot lately. Moving out here, starting over, it can be stressful. Maybe you're just imagining things." "I'm not imagining things," I said, my voice rising. "I'm telling you, there's something wrong with that dog. Something is wrong with this place." All right, he said, holding up his hands. "I'll come out and take a look, but I'm sure it's just a misunderstanding." He came out to the farmhouse later that day. I showed him the documents. I told him about Barnaby's behavior, about the rabbit, about the bat. He looked around the house, his face impassive. He patted Barnaby on the head, and the dog didn't growl but stared at him as if deciding how he would taste. He didn't seem convinced. "I don't see anything out of the ordinary, Sarah," he said. "Maybe you should talk to someone. A therapist, maybe." He left, shaking his head. I felt utterly alone. That night, I woke up to a sound that chilled me to the bone. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a growl. It was a voice. A human voice. Coming from Barnaby. I sat bolt upright in bed, my heart pounding. I strained my ears, listening intently. "Sarah," the voice whispered. It was low and guttural, but unmistakably human. "Sarah, help me." I grabbed my knife and crept out of bed. I followed the sound to the living room. Barnaby was standing in the center of the room, his body contorted in an unnatural way. His eyes glowed with an unholy light. "Barnaby?" I whispered, my voice trembling. He turned to face me, his mouth opening, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Sarah," the voice said again, louder this time. "I need you." His form started to shift and change. His fur peeled away, revealing pale, slick skin underneath. His limbs stretched and elongated, his bones cracking and popping. I screamed. I lunged at him with the knife, slashing wildly. He dodged my attack with impossible speed. He grabbed my wrist, his grip like a vice. I felt a searing pain, like my bones were being crushed. "Don't fight me, Sarah," he said, his voice now a deep, resonant baritone. "I'm doing this for you." I looked into his eyes, and I saw something that terrified me more than anything else I had ever seen. I saw myself. He had my eyes, my reflection, my fear. He threw me to the ground, the knife clattering away. He stood over me, his body still changing, still transforming. "We're going to be together, Sarah," he said. "Forever." He reached down and touched my face, and then everything went black. I don't know how long I was unconscious. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor, covered in blood. Barnaby was gone. The house was silent. Too silent. I staggered to my feet, my body aching all over. I looked in the mirror. My eyes, they were different. They were glowing. I ran. I ran out of the house, out of the yard, out of Havenwood. I didn't stop running until I reached the highway. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what's going to happen to me. All I know is that Barnaby wasn't a dog. He was something else. Something ancient. Something evil. And he's still out there, waiting. I see him everywhere now. In the shadows, in the faces of strangers, in the reflection in the windows. He's coming for me. I know it. And I'm terrified. I called my therapist a few minutes ago. I told him everything. He said I needed to come in, that I was having a breakdown. Maybe he's right. Maybe this is all in my hands, and they seem to be different. Longer, more elegant, more deadly. More deadly. Maybe it is my head. But maybe it's more than that.